What is up, gang? Another year of Red Wing hockey is here upon us. Game one just wrapped up tonight. Forrest, kind of a tough showing for the Red Wings.
Tough showing, 6-3 loss tonight to the Penguins to open your 24-25 season. Luckily, we've got 81 more of these, but yes, Matt, a tough showing. Started off strong, 1-0 lead in the first period, and then an absolute avalanche happens in the second period. The Wings just break down defensively and are not able to complete the comeback from there. So yes, this is our first going live here of the 24-25 season. So it's great to be back. And yeah.
So, really, a lot of the conversation in the offseason when roster assembly was taking place was, did they really do enough to address some of the holes? Even last year being so close to a playoff spot, still towards the bottom in goals against, defense has been an issue seemingly since number 5 hung up his skates. It's just more of the same old stuff on the back end, and tonight really didn't help that case at all.
No. Last year you saw a Wings team that was that definitely left their goalie out to dry quite a bit, but got some timely goaltending through some certain stretches last year. An offense that was very opportunistic as well. They were, I think, top 5, top 3 in shooting percentage, which really helped them and build them out on quite a few different occasions. But yeah, with a lot of changing of the guard, you mentioned roster changes, losing about 60 to 70 goals from last season to this with changes. It's something that's probably going to take a little bit of time. It's not like you can see that they're still building some chemistry on some of these lines up top, seeing familiar faces up there, but like the fourth line, you could tell that they were still kind of feeling each other out, and still trying to understand where everybody's going to be. It takes time. You don't just instantly have chemistry with everybody, and I think you're kind of seeing that to start the season. Yes, there's a lot of preseason games, but it still doesn't come overnight.
So, and I think, excuse me, I think another thing too that Red Wings fans have been annoyed about, that still even lingers even tonight after watching the defense, the Jake Wallman trade, pretty much paying a premium to offload him. Really, the defense is kind of the exact same. I mean, you sub out Wallman for a full season of Edvinsson pretty much, and you swap out Gostis Bear for Eric Gustafsson, who, when he played with DeBrincat and Kane in Chicago, did pretty well. But that was several years ago. This is a different game now. The game evolves every single year. And there were just a lot of plays tonight where I felt like the defense was turning pucks over. They were caught down low a couple of times. The second goal we gave up, Petrie and Edvinsson are kind of on the goal scorer out front. Petrie peels off to cover Raquel, I think it was, which is the correct thing to do. But Edvinsson's a big SOB. Like, you got to be able to tie a guy up and you got to be able to get his stick off the ground. He's young. I can have some patience for that. But then on the third goal, the goal scorer is streaking in far side. Everyone's got their back turned to him. Oli Mata never even looks at him until he's got the puck on his stick. And with the way the roster was assembled in the offseason, obviously we're sacrificing maybe a little bit of offense. And the idea was, make our team more defensive, harder to score against. And night one, game one of 82, doesn't really look like that so far. Early, but yet.
You're 100% right. It's a team that we finished with, I think it was 89 points last season, and to be honest, a lot went our way. We started off lightning hot out of the gate. We finished the season on an absolute tear, and we had a couple bumps along the road, in the season, which made it come down to a tiebreaker where we got left out. This season, gosh, you just get the feeling that it's just more of the same. I mean, I believe that outside of swapping Gustafsson for Gostis Bear, which is kind of funny how close those two are, but regardless, the other 5 guys on defense didn't change, and like the top 4 didn't change on D. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we're in for another long season here defensively. Like last year, we got lucky with a high shooting percentage. It just makes me nervous with this season. Shooting percentage is not sustainable. And this D, while yes, it did stand on its head a lot last season, I just don't see how they hold up over a full 82 game season. And yeah, just interested to see where it goes this season with Lalonde, and I think they should have tried to do something different, whether it be a coach, whether it be different guys on D, whether it be a different forward group up front. I feel like they couldn't afford to just stay status quo, but they've done it. They're reshuffling the deck and they're rolling the dice.
So before I talk about a couple of good things from tonight, you know, there were in the summertime around the draft specifically, a lot of rumors about the Red Wings and Jacob Trouba being connected. I think a lot of Wings fans kind of had mixed feelings about it. You kind of had a group that was all for it. You kind of had a group that was like, he's dirty, he's expensive, blah, 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 whatever. And it just kind of felt like a lot of eggs were put in that basket. Like, we're not there for the internal conversations with teams and agents and players and all that stuff. But the guy, he had a clause in his contract and he exercised it. Like, that's his right as a player. He negotiated that when he negotiated his contract. And that was something that was super important to him for family reasons or whatever reasons he wants. He's got it and he has the right to use it. So when that all kind of fell apart, it didn't really seem like anything else kind of materialized in terms of a trade. Because you really didn't hear anything other than that. And, he exercised his no move and it was dead, or his modified no trade, whatever it is. And I feel like if that could have happened, you have Trouba, right shot, second pair. That bumps Petrie down. That bumps a lot of people down. And when that didn't materialize and didn't happen, I'm wondering how in-depth plans B, C, and D were, because night one, game one of the 24-25 season, and Jeff Petrie's out there, right shot, second pair. And he did get injured tonight. We're obviously not sure the extent of that injury, if it's day-to-day, week-to-week, or whatever. Hockey's pretty close to the vest with that, as we all know. But the defensive core, and we've tweeted about this too, just kind of worried that Mo Seider is going to be deployed in the same way against all the top guys all the time on any given night. Limits his offensive upside if you deploy him that way, in my opinion. Simon Edvinsson going through his first full year. I think we all have high hopes for Simon Edvinsson, and rightfully so. But he's not technically a rookie by NFL definition, but he's a rookie. NHL, excuse me, wrong sport. And then you got just a lot of guys in the murky middle, your Matas, your Sherratts, your Petries, Gustafson. I don't know if they can really pull it together and do it on a consistent basis. Like we saw bits and pieces of it last year, sure, but there were times too where we would, have clunkers of a game. The San Jose 6-5 or 7-6 game comes to mind. Giving up a bunch of goals to Arizona comes to mind, and they were doing it then, even with that high shooting percentage, which I agree with you. I don't think that's sustainable either. That's definitely bound to come down a little bit. So just by that math alone, you're losing some goals. Forget about the goals that left in free agency. We're going to struggle to score, I think. Our bottom six last year had some scoring depth in it, and we ripped on Fabry and Daniel Sprong as much as anybody else, but they could put the puck in the net. I think the two of them combined had over 30 goals. Yeah. Who's going to score that? I don't see a whole lot of offense in our bottom six. And if the bottom six isn't going to score, then they got to be super reliable defensively to help bail out that defensive core that you've assembled that you're choosing to ride with. And tonight, just game one didn't really look like how we wanted it to look as fans. And I'm sure the coaches and players aren't too happy with it either.
It's tough because, you don't want to see all those veterans playing the third and fourth line, but they're there, and they're there over the young kids, frustratingly for a lot of us. And you're right, they're going to have to prove their value. Like Tyler Mott is probably going to need to score double-digit goals at least. That is a tall task. I mean, we're asking Mo Sider to be a number one defenseman and drag around Ben Sherratt for 22 minutes a night. Like, we're saying, yeah, Mo, we expect you to get better in your third, fourth year and also play with this absolute scrub. I mean, how can we expect him to take a step? I mean, it's the same with Edvinson. He's out there and he's in a second pairing role, and we're asking him to play with Jeff Petrie and say, dude, get better and play with Jeff Petrie. Like, we are not setting these guys up for success in Detroit, and we need to stop pretending like Detroit is this holy grail that, guys need to over ripen. These are not the mid 2000s, late 90s dynasty wings where they have insane players up and down the lineup. These are just average NHL guys that are simply blocking spots at this point. And yes, it's a time of transition. Yes, we're not locked into a lot of these contracts outside of 2 years, but we got to start shuffling guys out real quick, because you can't start a bunch of like rookies next season. You can't bring up Danielson, Casper, Mazer, you name it, all next season. We got to bring them in from time to time. Like, that's why I thought it was the perfect time for Casper to be brought up with the team, with him being the most dangerous player in the preseason. Why not bring him up, put him on the second line? You can't sit here and tell me that your second line is more dangerous with JT Comfort over Marco Casper. You're never going to convince me that, and I think you're crazy if you are even going to make that argument. The best players should be playing, and Marco Casper, in my opinion, gives us the best chance to win on the second line, and we're just choosing to not and slow play it again.
Not only choosing to not have Marco Casper on the team, they only have 22 on the roster right now. You're allowed 23. Like, I don't understand that logic at all. You have a free roster spot and you're not using it on a guy who might be able to come in and spark, whether it's him or Watson. I mean, you're just voluntarily carrying 22. Maybe there's some weird salary cap stuff that goes with that. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not a salary cap guru. But before I move on to the good, I do want to talk about the goaltending, and I do want to talk about the special teams. Special teams tonight, the 5-on-4. We had the 5-on-3 goal. DeBrincat rebound right on his stick. I would hope to God you can bury that one. He did. Good for him. 5-on-4, we were 0 for 5. PK 5-on-4, we were 1 for 2. Your combined 5-on-4 is 50%. Brother, that is not going to win you a lot of games in the NHL. And then the goaltending as well. I thought it was a bit peculiar that Husso was named the game one starter. He looked okay in the preseason, but just with his injury history and everything, I didn't expect him to get in right away. Was wrong. Fine. He looked brutal. The goal that he let in right before he got pulled, I think everyone in the building knew he was coming out after that one. I mean, that's a slow line drive to the shortstop right there, man. Like, you can't miss those. Those are gotta have it's in the NHL. And again, to a point that we were talking about, and I saw some people on Twitter talking about, thought Husso might have been a candidate for someone to get waived, to clear away for another roster spot, have him go down to GR and have him mentor Kosa a little bit, get his bearings a little bit. And if you want to call him up in a month or so or whatever, then go ahead. He's expensive. He's got an injury history. I'm really not sure anybody would have claimed him, but hey, maybe I'm wrong.
Probably not at $5 million, 4.75, whatever he's at.
Right.
Nobody's taking a flyer on his injury-prone ass.
Yeah, he is expensive. So, and maybe you could have. I'm assuming you could have gotten a little cap relief on that too. Similarly with Hall. Again, not sure all the specifics of it, but the goaltending. I mean, if the defense is going to be mediocre and average, then your goaltending needs to be average or above average to have a chance. But even with that, if your special teams is going to go combined 50%, I mean, come on. You're setting yourself up for disaster. And I really wish that we could find a way to get more creative with our power play setup, because the way we enter the zone and break out, it's been the same, I feel like, since Jeff Blashill has been here. I feel like it's the easiest power play breakout and entry to scout in the league. You have a high guy for the drop pass to cover them. You got a guy on the hugging the wall for that little wall dump off they love to do. I would just like to see a little bit more done in the special teams department in terms of not only breaking the puck out, but gaining the zone and leading to sustained possessions. The first power play we had in the first period, I thought was really good. a lot of good chances. And then just as the game kept going, it's just a lot of turnovers, dead pucks in the middle cleared out. There was really nothing generated aside from the 5-on-3 after that first period on the power play.
I agree. I think something needs to be shaken up on the power play because, yeah, they still run that same little drop pass play that they did back when they had, Euro twins and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And to, you know, that worked when you had all the high end talent back in the day, Zetterbergs, Statsuks, Lidstroms. You have people that you can drop the puck to, but at this point, they don't have that. They don't have that high end talent where they can just go out and out talent you. And that's the thing is, good coaching adapts to the personnel that they have. And gosh, I just really don't think this coaching staff is getting the best out of their players. And I don't think they're setting the team up for success. Like if it was up to me, I think this team should go into like a Barry Trotz kind of shell where they just sell out on defense and they're just opportunistic on offense and counterattacking the other team, but they just don't play like that. And
it did seem like their forecheck got a little less aggressive, which I don't necessarily hate because I don't know if they have the wheels to have an aggressive forecheck. So it seemed like that was a little bit more passive. I mean, Pittsburgh, they didn't even really play that great of a game. They had 25 or less shots on goal. I feel like anytime you have a home game in the NHL where you're giving up 23, 24 shots, you're probably feeling pretty good about your chances. But if you're giving up 6 berries on 24 shots, like it speaks to the defense and the structure. And yes, it's game 1. I don't want to overreact, but I think the most annoying part about it all is that things that were like predictably going to be problems were the biggest problems tonight.
I want to go back to the goaltending for a second because outside of the 1-2 month stretch where Lyon was standing on his head every single night, the goaltending was basically a coin flip. The defense was basically a coin flip. I mean, when it's a professional team that is not that consistent, it just makes me nervous over a long season.
On the bright side, Dylan Larkin's line looks great. Looks like they're picking up right where they left off. DeBrincat, 2 berries, 1 assist. Raymond had a couple of assists, and I think Larkin had an assist as well. So, and again, anytime your top line's putting up 6-7 points a game, you should be feeling pretty good about your chances. Unfortunately, just that D side of the puck continues to give the Red Wings fits. And I can have a little grace with him tonight. Jeff Petrie goes down, you only dress 6, and you're forced to play 5D for half the game, maybe a little bit more. That's not easy to do. But again, we have these guys in the lineup. I have said 100 times before, I really like the 11 and 7, especially with this roster on the defense. Give yourself that 7th D. If someone does go down, you still got 6. If someone doesn't have it, you can give someone else some bigger minutes. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Petrie. If he's out for any period of time, I would assume someone's going to get called up. Who knows if that'll be Watson or Casper. I doubt they would call up a defenseman, but who knows? We've been surprised by Yzerman and Lalonde before. But really, really good to see the first line seemingly picking up where they left off.
First line absolutely ate tonight. You want to talk about positives, that should be ringing from the mountaintops. If there is anything that us as Wing fans can get behind is that our first line is a wagon, and they're going to have to be a wagon all season long to keep up with the amount of goals that are going to be let into our net. So definitely a positive start for them. Tarasenko, I know he scored as the penalty was expiring. Like in my mind, I consider that a power play goal. It was kind of nice, to be honest, to see like somebody over on the left flank that's, like lefty. He's not playing offhand. He's playing on his normal wing there, but just take the puck in, get an angle and roof it. I mean, we don't see that very often. Yeah, we saw that a little bit with Kane, but like to possess the puck that way, freeze the defense and go top shelf, like we haven't seen a lot of that in the Motor City over the last couple of years. So that I will say I was very excited to see that. Definitely happy to have a Tarasenko on our team as opposed to him lining up against us. So that was super cool for me. Other positives, like Mo is going to play these tough minutes, like
whether we like it or not.
whether we like it or not. And like you mentioned Truba earlier, there yes, there was no plan B outside of Truba. And if you want my honest opinion, Truba would have definitely improved this team, and I think we would actually have a chance to be legitimately fighting for a playoff this year. Bumping Petrie down to the third line, having Trouba play those second line minutes with Edmondson, like that is a second pairing that if Edmondson and Trouba that you could put out there against anybody's top line, and I'd be feeling really good about their chances out there.
Yeah, and then that obviously takes some pressure off of 53, allows him to free up his game a little bit as well. But nonetheless, this is the roster for the year. I don't think Nick Lidstrom or anybody's walking through the door to help us out, unfortunately. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. All signs pointing to Albert Johansson getting to make his debut red carpet style down at the LCA on Saturday against the Predators. I do want to talk about the schedule to start the year, because if the Wings don't figure it out, this could get a little ugly pretty quick.
Well, let's talk through it, because it's an absolute gauntlet this year. We came out of the gates absolutely blazing last season, and it was the talk of the town. I mean, let's be honest. Detroit sports were pretty depressing up until recently, and yeah, the Wings came out hot last year, and schedule is brutal this season.
So I know we have Nashville to start on this weekend. Oh,
you're correct, Matt. So they played the Predators on Saturday.
Yeah.
Home game. Then they play at the Rangers on the 14th. Home against the Rangers on the 17th, and then the Preds again on the road a week from this Saturday.
So the next 4 games are only against Nashville and the Rangers.
Yes.
It's insane.
Playoff, 2 playoff teams from last season.
So I don't know, man. They really got to figure it out quick, because those are 2 teams. Again, any night in the NHL, anybody can go with anybody. Nobody believes that more than we do. But we also know that, history tends to repeat itself, and the Red Wings seem to be struggling with this period of time where defense, whether it's defenseman the position or team defense as a concept and structure, just seems to give them fits. And the really good teams in the league know that, and they take advantage of it. And I'm hoping that we can, slowly kind of ease into this here. Doesn't get too far off the rails, because, I mean, you get to 10, 15, 20 games in, and if you're looking up already, I mean, I'm not as tough on Newsy as you are, and I hear your points on Newsy, but if we get to 20 games in and we're looking up by a significant margin, boy, that's not a seat I would like to be sitting on.
Yeah, like to go further into the schedule, they're at the Islanders, they got the Devils at home, they got the Sabres, the Oilers, the Jets. There are no gimme games this season. Like, we play in one of the toughest divisions in hockey, and the teams that didn't make the playoffs last season in our division all got better as well. Whereas we kind of stayed status quo. Yes, we were the closest of them, but we kind of stayed status quo. And so, hoping that we can go back to the board tonight and fix some of these defensive issues for Saturday, because tonight's just not acceptable. Like, all the way around, from the team defense, leaving guys open. Yes, like on the one, Petrie made the right play, but we need him. We need him to recognize that sooner, and to take away the lane. Like, they just looked like a team that wasn't ready tonight, and that's okay. It's game one. It's game one. It's a long season, but man, if this team is not if this team is underperforming at the 41 game mark, I think it might be time for a new coach, especially in hockey. We know how quickly. Not saying that so we get a new coach in here, it's going to absolutely turn around. We're going to be Stanley Cup contenders, but to be in year 3 with Newsy, like we haven't gotten better. We haven't
That
gotten
dude,
better.
and no contract extension was given to him either. And I think, I mean, Yzerman has a reason for everything he does. I think, he wanted to see how this year went too before he guaranteed Newsy a fourth season. So
Committed.
it's not like I don't think anybody's actively rooting for the guy's downfall by any means. I think he's a good guy and we want him to succeed. He's the head coach of our team. But at the end of the day, I mean, pro sports is super cutthroat. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. We don't want to write them off after one game by any means. But kind of like I said, the most annoying thing for me is that the things that were predictably going to go wrong did go wrong. And just frustrating too, because I don't want to keep harping on the Casper thing, but I don't really think there was one player out there tonight to me that was super noticeable all game like Marco Casper was a couple of times in the preseason. Yes, it's preseason. You're playing against different players, whatever. I don't know what more you could have asked the kid to do. It's got to be annoying from his point of view. It's annoying from a fan's point of view for sure. And hopefully, he takes it on the chin and just keeps playing his game. And hopefully he's wearing the red and white pretty soon.
One can hope, man. I mean, we saw the injury to Petrie tonight. Johansson's going to get the chance. I'm never going to root for any kind of injuries, but unfortunately, it's going to be injuries because no team is healthy throughout the entire season that allows some call ups and some guys to get a taste. That's unfortunately what it's going to take to get some guys some playing time this season and get them a taste. Like Edmondson, they brought him up for the 9 games at the end of the one season just to give him a taste. Yes, he didn't make the team the next season, but he was ready to go. You got to give these guys a taste of the speed because it is a jump from the A up to the NHL. It is that much faster, and you do have to experience it in order to go back and work on it.
Everyone just mentally prepare yourselves for the Justin Hall call-up. Just mentally prepare yourself for it so that you're not let down when it happens. Before we end our first pod of the year, Forrest, I need a point total prediction for the team.
I'm going with 85 points, just right down the middle. I think 85 is what can happen if things go a little bit more our way. But yeah, definitely a step back from last season. Shooting percentage regression, on uncertainty in goal. Let's just call it what it is. You're not carrying 3 goalies unless you don't know who your goalie is. If you got 3 goalies, then you really got none because you don't have a bona fide number one. So 85 points for me, Matt. What about you?
That's fair. I'm just slightly more optimistic. I'm going to go with 88. I still think they're going to be shortly on the outside looking in. But it's a long season, I mean, other teams got to deal with injuries and the grind just like you do. I mean, anything can happen. And, I feel like a few years ago, low 90s or upper 80s maybe got you a spot. So you got to play all the games. You got to see what happens. But I don't see them surpassing what they did last year. I think it was 91 last year. So say a few points less. And again, if there's any team in the NHL that should be aware of the fact of how valuable every single game, every single point is, it should be the Detroit Red Wings, who were left on the outside looking in on some technicality, OT, regulation win BS where Philadelphia had to pull their goal. Like you're that close. And if you would have just won one more game or taken one more game to overtime, you would have been in playing the Rangers and not the Washington Capitals. So I really hope that doesn't get lost on them. I'm sure it doesn't, but every game's important. And unfortunately now you're 0-1.
Game 1 in an exciting 82 game season, a lot of ups and downs left to go. It's early. Game 1, you're not expecting the 2002 Detroit Red Wings out of the gate. So a lot to improve on. But hopefully we can get it turned around for Saturday and start, moving this ship in the right direction. Because, you brought up defensive hockey structure that all the good teams play because they all know how to grind you down once the playoffs come around. That's what the Rangers are going to do to us. So it's going to be a wake-up call. I mean, the Predators are the same way. They rely on their goaltending and they play defense. Can we cut through their structure and break down their defense to score enough goals to win? we will see. And obviously, we're going to be watching either way and rooting on our Wings.
Absolutely. If you live in the Detroit area, get down there on Saturday. It's going to be hype. It's going to be live red carpet action. The Nashville Predators in town should be a good matchup down at the LCA. We're excited for another year of hockey. Hopefully soon the team wins some games and we can have a little bit more of a joyous demeanor on this program. Until then, this is Matt and Forrest, Hockey Town Hangout. Follow us on Twitter, Red Wing Diehards. We'll see you next time.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Hockey Town Hangout on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.